The year was 3025, and humanity had come a long way since its first steps into space. What started as small missions to nearby planets had grown into an empire of colonies scattered across the stars. Humans weren't alone anymore. They shared the galaxy with countless alien species. Some were allies, others neutral, and a few outright hostile. But despite their differences, one thing united them all: the Galactic Council. The Galactic Council was a group of powerful beings from different worlds who governed interstellar law. They made decisions that affected every corner of the galaxy, from trade agreements to war declarations. To most humans, the Council seemed distant, almost untouchable. But today, two humans found themselves standing in the middle of it all. Jae-min tightened his jacket as he walked down the polished hallway of the orbital station Aetheris. The walls shimmered faintly, reflecting the light of hundreds of stars outside. He glanced at his companion, Hye-ji, whose sharp eyes scanned the surroundings with curiosity. She carried a small tablet tucked under her arm, filled with data she hoped would help them navigate whatever awaited them inside. Jae-min was calm by nature, always thinking before speaking. His voice rarely rose above a steady tone, even in tense situations. That's why he'd been chosen as Earth's diplomat for this meeting. Beside him, Hye-ji was the opposite, quick to speak her mind and unafraid to challenge authority. Her expertise in quantum energy research made her invaluable, though her boldness sometimes got her into trouble. Together, they represented Earth's Federation, a growing force among the stars. Yet, no matter how far humanity had come, many aliens still saw humans as reckless newcomers. The Council often criticized Earth for its rapid expansion and disregard for tradition. It wasn't uncommon for debates between humans and other species to turn heated. As they approached the grand chamber where the Council convened, Jae-min couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. The summons had arrived, without warning, a single message instructing them to attend an emergency session. No explanations, no details, just a time and location. "This feels strange," Hye-ji said, breaking the silence. "Why call us here now? And why so suddenly?" Jae-min shrugged but didn't answer. He didn't want to admit it, but he shared her unease. Whatever waited for them beyond those doors, it wasn't going to be ordinary. When they entered the chamber, the sight took their breath away. The room stretched endlessly upward, its ceiling lost in shadows. Rows of seats spiraled around a central platform, each occupied by representatives from various species. Some looked humanoid, while others resembled creatures out of nightmares or dreams. Bright lights illuminated the space, casting reflections on smooth metallic surfaces. At the center stood Kael'Tharis, the leader of the Galactic Council. He towered over everyone else, his insectoid body gleaming like polished obsidian. 6 limbs clicked softly as he moved, and his multifaceted eyes glowed faintly green. His presence commanded attention, and when he spoke, the entire room fell silent. "Delegates," Kael'Tharis began, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. "We gather today not because of conflict or negotiation, but because of discovery." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Then, with a wave of one clawed limb, a holographic image appeared in the air above him. It showed a massive object floating in the void of space. Its shape defied logic. It was neither fully mechanical nor biological, yet somehow both. Strange patterns covered its surface, glowing faintly blue. Energy pulsed through it like veins carrying lifeblood. Whispers erupted throughout the chamber. Even Jae-min felt a chill run down his spine. This was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Kael'Tharis continued, his tone grave. This artifact was discovered near the edge of the galaxy. Preliminary scans suggest it is ancient, predating even the oldest known civilizations. However, he hesitated, his glowing eyes narrowing. There is evidence of human involvement. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Hye-ji leaned forward, her brow furrowing. Human involvement? How could that be possible? Humanity hadn't reached such distances yet. Their technology wasn't advanced enough to leave traces on something like this. "What do you mean?" Jae-min asked, stepping forward. His voice remained steady, though his heart raced. How can you claim human involvement? Kael'Tharis turned his gaze toward Jamin, fixing him with an unwavering stare. Scans reveal components consistent with your technology. Fragments of designs abandoned centuries ago by your scientists. Someone, or something, has repurposed them. Hyeji's grip tightened on her tablet. She recognized what Kael'Tharis described. Years ago, her team had experimented with unstable quantum reactors. The project had been shut down due to safety concerns. Could remnants of that work really have ended up here? Before she could say anything, another delegate, an amphibious creature with iridescent skin, spoke up. This is unacceptable! If humans are creating weapons capable of threatening entire star systems, we must act immediately! No! Hyeji shouted, surprising even herself. All eyes turned to her as she stepped beside Jamin. We don't know what this is yet. We need to investigate further before jumping to conclusions. Kael'Tharis raised a limb, silencing the growing murmurs. She is correct. We cannot afford rash decisions. Therefore, I propose a joint expedition led by representatives from multiple species, including Earth. Jamin nodded slowly. Agreed. But let me make one thing clear. If humanity is involved in any way, we deserve answers just as much as anyone else. With that, the session adjourned. As Jamin and Hyeji left the chamber, they exchanged worried glances. Neither knew what lay ahead, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. Little did they realize, this discovery would test not only their courage, but also the very essence of what it meant to be human. The journey back to their quarters aboard the orbital station, Etheris felt heavier than usual. Jamin walked silently, his hands clasped behind his back, while Hyeji paced ahead of him, her mind racing faster than her steps. She clutched her tablet tightly, replaying Kael'Tharis's words in her head. Human involvement? Impossible. Or so she wanted to believe. Do you think it's true? Jamin finally asked, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but there was a tension in his tone that betrayed his composure. Hyeji stopped walking and turned to face him. Her dark eyes narrowed as she thought about what the council leader had said. I don't know, she admitted. But if they're right, if our tech is somehow connected to that thing out there, then we have a problem. A big one. Jamin nodded slowly. He understood the implications. If the artifact really contained traces of human technology, it would raise questions no one could answer easily. How did abandoned experiments end up light years away, embedded in something so advanced? And more importantly, who or what had put them there? The next morning, the two humans were summoned again to the council chamber. This time, however, the atmosphere was even tenser. Delegates from various species whispered among themselves, casting suspicious glances toward Jamin and Hyeji. Some openly accused humanity of hiding secrets, while others speculated about Earth's intentions. Kael'Tharis stood at the center of the room once more, his towering form commanding attention. When he raised a limb to signal for silence, the murmurs died down immediately. We have conducted further analysis on the artifact, he announced. Another hologram appeared above him, this one zooming in on specific sections of the massive structure. Lines of data scrolled beside the image, highlighting key findings. These scans confirm the presence of components consistent with human design. Specifically, elements resembling quantum reactors developed centuries ago by your scientists. Hyeji's heart sank. She recognized the schematics instantly. They matched the failed prototypes her team had worked on decades earlier. The project had been abandoned after tests showed the reactors were dangerously unstable, yet here they were, somehow integrated into an alien construct far beyond anything humanity could build. This is insane, she muttered under her breath, shaking her head. Beside her, Yaman placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Kael'Tharis continued, his glowing eyes scanning the crowd. What concerns us most is not just the presence of these components, but their potential application. Based on preliminary simulations, this artifact appears capable of generating energy on a scale sufficient to destroy entire star systems. A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. Even those who had doubted before now looked alarmed. An alien delegate, a reptilian creature with scales shimmering like emeralds, rose to his feet. "Are you suggesting that humanity has created a weapon of mass destruction?" "No!" Hyaji shouted, stepping forward instinctively. All eyes turned to her, and she swallowed hard before continuing. "We didn't create this. Whatever this thing is, it's not ours. Yes, parts of it might look familiar, but we didn't build it. Someone or something else did." Her words hung in the air, met with skeptical stares. Jae-min stepped up beside her, his expression firm. "She's right. Accusing us without evidence serves no purpose. What we need is answers. Let us investigate this artifact together, alongside representatives from other species. Only then can we determine the truth." Kael'Tharis tilted his head slightly, considering the proposal. After a moment, he nodded. "Very well. A joint expedition will be organized. Representatives from multiple species, including Earth, will travel to the artifact's location. But make no mistake, if this mission uncovers evidence of wrongdoing, humanity will face consequences." With that, the session ended. As Jae-min and Hyeji left the chamber, they exchanged uneasy glances. They knew the stakes were high. If the artifact truly posed a threat, and if humanity was implicated in its creation, the fallout could shatter Earth's fragile alliances across the galaxy. The days leading up to the expedition passed quickly. Preparations were underway aboard the EOS Vanguard, a state-of-the-art exploration vessel designed for long-distance missions. The ship gleamed with sleek lines and advanced technology, its interior bustling with activity as crew members readied it for launch. Joining Jae-min and Hyeji were 3 additional human crewmates. Kyung-soo, a former soldier-turned-pilot whose stoic demeanor masked a sharp mind. Soo-jin, a linguist fluent in dozens of alien languages, and several engineers tasked with maintaining the ship's systems. Alongside them were representatives from 3 other species chosen by the Galactic Council. Vareen, a crystalline being whose translucent body refracted light like a prism. Thalok, a reptilian warrior with scales that shifted colors depending on his mood. And Lirea, a telepathic aquatic creature whose graceful movements seemed almost hypnotic. As the team gathered, in the briefing room, tensions were already simmering. Thalok eyed the humans warily, his tail flicking impatiently. "Why must we trust them?" he growled, his voice low and guttural. "They are reckless, dangerous." Hyeji bristled at the comment, but kept her cool. "And yet, here we are, working, together," she replied evenly. "If you want to find answers, you'll need our help, just like we'll need yours." Thalok snorted, but said nothing more. Meanwhile, Vareen emitted a soft chiming sound, a sign of agreement. "Unity is strength," the crystalline being said in a melodic voice. "Let us focus on the mission." Lirea floated nearby, her liquid form shimmering faintly. She projected thoughts directly into everyone's minds, bypassing language barriers entirely. "Fear will only divide us," she communicated. "Trust must come first." Jae-min nodded approvingly. "Well said. We may not agree on everything, but we share a common goal. Let's keep that in mind." With preparations complete, the EOS Vanguard launched into the void. The journey to the artifact would take several weeks, giving the crew plenty of time to bond or clash. From the start, the mix of personalities proved challenging. Kyung-soo spent hours fine-tuning the ship's engines, rarely speaking unless necessary. Soo-jin immersed herself in studying alien dialects, practicing phrases aloud to perfect her pronunciation. Meanwhile, Hyeji pored over data, trying to piece together any clues about the artifact's origins. Despite their differences, moments of camaraderie began to emerge. During mealtimes, the crew gathered in the mess hall, sharing stories about their homeworlds. Vareen described landscapes made entirely of crystal, where sunlight danced endlessly across the horizon. Lirea recounted tales of underwater cities bathed in bioluminescent glow, her voice soothing and melodic. Even Thalok softened slightly, recounting battles fought on distant moons, yet beneath the surface, unease lingered. Strange occurrences plagued the ship as they drew closer to the artifact. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation, forcing the engineers to work overtime. Crew members reported vivid dreams filled with unfamiliar faces and haunting whispers. Sujin confided in Jae-min that she'd begun hearing voices in languages she couldn't identify, though none of the aliens claimed responsibility. One night, as the ship drifted through a particularly dense nebula, Kyung-soo approached Jae-min in the cockpit. "Something's off," he said bluntly. "This ship feels alive." Jae-min frowned. "Alive? What do you mean?" "I don't know how to explain it," Kyung-soo admitted. "It's like the controls respond differently sometimes, as if they're anticipating my moves. And the hum of the engines! It changes pitch when I'm near." Before Jae-min could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. The crew scrambled to their stations as warning lights flashed red. On the main monitor, the artifact loomed larger than ever, its pulsating glow growing brighter with each passing second. "It's reacting to us," Hyaji said, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. Panels along the artifact's surface shifted, forming intricate patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the ship's systems. Without warning, a beam of blue light shot out from the artifact, enveloping the Eos Vanguard. For a brief moment, everything went silent. Then, a voice, not spoken, but felt, echoed in their minds. "Welcome, seekers of truth." When the light faded, the crew stared at each other in stunned silence. Whatever they had encountered, it was far beyond anything they had imagined. Little did they know, their journey was only beginning. The Eos Vanguard floated silently in the shadow of the massive artifact, its crew frozen in a mix of awe and uncertainty. The voice that had echoed in their minds moments earlier still lingered, leaving each member of the team grappling with what they had just experienced. It wasn't spoken aloud. There were no sound waves to carry it, but rather felt, as if the words had been etched directly into their thoughts. Hyeji was the first to break the silence. She stepped forward, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands, and stared at the glowing structure outside the viewport. "Did anyone else hear that?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Kyung-soo, seated at the controls, nodded slowly without taking his eyes off the monitors. "Yeah, I heard it. Or felt it. Whatever it was." Sujin crossed her arms, her face pale. "It spoke to us, but how? And why?" Jae-min stood near the center of the room, his expression calm but thoughtful. He glanced at each member of the crew, noting their reactions. Some looked shaken, others curious, but all shared one thing: confusion. "We don't have answers yet," he said finally, "but we're here to find them. Let's focus on figuring out what this thing is before jumping to conclusions." Thalok growled softly under his breath, his tail flicking irritably. "This is madness. We should leave while we still can." "No!" Hyeji snapped, turning to face him. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the tension. "We didn't come all this way just to run away because something feels strange. If this artifact really has traces of human technology, and if it could pose a threat, we need to understand it. Running won't solve anything," Vareen chimed in, its crystalline form shimmering faintly. "She is correct. Fear will not aid us. Curiosity must guide us." Laraya floated nearby, her liquid body rippling gently. Without speaking aloud, she projected her thoughts into everyone's minds. The artifact chose to communicate. "That means it wants something from us." "What could it possibly want?" Thalok muttered, crossing his arms. His scales shifted to a darker shade, signaling his unease. "That's what we're here to figure out," Jae-min replied firmly. "Let's get closer and see what happens." The Eos Vanguard edged nearer to the artifact, its engines humming softly as Kyung-soo guided the ship with practiced precision. As they approached, the surface of the structure began to shift again, panels sliding apart to reveal intricate patterns beneath. Streams of blue light pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. The sight was mesmerizing, drawing every eye. In the room, "It's reacting to us," Sujin whispered, her voice tinged with wonder. "It knows we're here." Hyeji tapped furiously on her tablet, analyzing the data streaming in from the ship's sensors. "There's definitely some kind of energy field surrounding it. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. It doesn't match any known physics." Jae-min moved closer to the viewport, studying the structure intently. Could it be alive? Or at least partially organic? "It's both," Hyeji said after a moment, her brow furrowed. Look at these readings. There are mechanical components but also biological elements. It's a hybrid. A living machine? Kyung-soo asked, raising an eyebrow. That's impossible. Apparently not, Jae-min replied dryly. Nothing about this situation seems possible, yet here we are. As the ship drew closer, the artifact emitted another pulse of light, brighter this time. This time, however, the light didn't stop. It enveloped the entire vessel, bathing the interior in a soft blue glow. For a moment, everything seemed to pause. The hum of the engines faded, the monitors went dark, and even the air felt heavier. Then, images began to appear, not on screens, but in their minds. Scenes of distant galaxies, ancient civilizations, and towering structures unfolded before them. They saw beings unlike any they had encountered before, their forms shifting and changing as if caught between states of existence. There were flashes of war, destruction, and creation, all blending together in a chaotic tapestry. "What is this?" Soo-jin gasped, clutching her head. "It's too much. Stay calm," Jae-min urged, though his own hands trembled slightly. "It's showing us something. Try to focus." Hyeji closed her eyes, concentrating on the images flooding her mind. Slowly, fragments began to make sense. She saw glimpses of Earth, humans building cities, launching rockets, exploring space. Then came flashes of her own lab, where she and her team had worked on quantum reactors years ago. Finally, she saw those same reactors embedded within the artifact, their unstable cores glowing faintly. "It's trying to tell us something," she said aloud, opening her eyes. "It's showing us how our technology ended up here, but it's also warning us." "Warning us about what?" Kyung-soo asked, his voice tight. Before Hyeji could respond, the light faded, and the ship's systems came back online. The artifact loomed larger than ever, its surface now covered in glowing symbols that pulsed in unison. One section of the structure shifted, revealing an opening large enough for the EOS Vanguard to enter. "We're being invited inside," Jae-min said quietly. He turned to the crew, his expression serious. "This is our chance to learn more. Are we ready?" "No," one spoke immediately. Each member of the team wrestled with their own doubts and fears. Finally, Vareen chimed softly, breaking the silence. "We must proceed. To turn back now would be to abandon hope." One by one, the others nodded in agreement. Even Thalok grunted, reluctantly, though his scales remained dark. Inside the artifact, the environment was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The walls shimmered with iridescent colors, shifting and flowing as if alive. Strange shapes floated in the air, pulsating with energy. The temperature was neither hot nor cold, and the air carried a faint hum that vibrated through their bodies. "This place. It's incredible," Soo-jin murmured, her wide eyes taking in every detail. "It's like stepping into another dimension." Hyeji scanned the area with her tablet, recording as much data as she could. "The energy readings are off the charts. This isn't just advanced tech. It's beyond anything we've ever imagined." As they ventured deeper, the artifact began to respond to their presence once more. Panels lit up as they passed, displaying symbols and patterns that seemed to shift based on who was looking at them. When Hyeji touched one of the panels, it reacted instantly, projecting streams of information directly into her neural interface. "It's communicating with me," she said, her voice filled with awe. "I think it's trying to teach me how to understand it." While Hyeji focused on deciphering the data, the rest of the crew explored the chamber. Kyung-soo examined the structural integrity of the walls, marveling at their resilience. Soo-jin recorded the sounds and vibrations, hoping to translate them later. Meanwhile, Vareen, Liraya, and Thalok exchanged observations, each interpreting the artifact differently based on their unique perspectives. Despite the wonders surrounding them, tension simmered beneath the surface. Thalok remained suspicious, his distrust of humanity coloring every interaction. "How do we know this isn't a trap?" he demanded at one point. "For all we know, humans built this thing to spy on us." "That's ridiculous," Hyeji shot back, her patience wearing thin. "If we'd built this, don't you think we'd know how to control it?" Enough, Jamin interjected, stepping between them. Arguing won't help us. We need to stay focused. Before Thalak could retort, the artifact responded to the rising tension. The lights dimmed slightly and a low hum filled the chamber. Then, a new image appeared, a holographic projection of the galaxy with countless threads connecting various planets and civilizations. At the center of the web sat Earth, its thread glowing brighter than the others. What does this mean? Sujin asked, staring at the projection. It's showing us connections, Heiji said, her voice hushed. Every civilization in the galaxy is linked somehow, and humanity, we're at the heart of it. Jamin frowned, studying the projection carefully. Why would humanity be central? We're still newcomers compared to most species. Maybe that's the point, Heiji suggested. We're adaptable. We innovate quickly. Maybe that's why we're important. As the discussion continued, the artifact revealed more information. It showed glimpses of a looming catastrophe, a great darkness spreading across the galaxy, threatening to consume everything in its path. The threads, connecting civilizations, began to fray, snapping one by one until only Earth's remained intact. This is a warning, Heiji said, her voice trembling. Something terrible is coming, and somehow, humanity holds the key to stopping it. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, realizing the gravity of their situation. Whatever this artifact was, it wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a beacon for the future. And whether they liked it or not, they were now part of its story. Little did they know, the trials awaiting them would test not only their courage but also their ability to work together. For the artifact demanded unity, and unity came at a price. The artifact's chamber glowed softly, its walls shimmering like liquid light. The crew stood in silence, their eyes fixed on the holographic projection of the galaxy still hovering before them. Threads of connection stretched between worlds, but many were frayed or broken entirely. The looming darkness at the edges of the image sent a chill through everyone who saw it. Hieji stepped closer to the projection, her tablet forgotten in her hand. "This isn't just a warning," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the unease creeping into her chest. "It's a test. The artifact is showing us what could happen if we fail." Jamin nodded slowly, his sharp gaze scanning the A room. "And it's waiting for us to act. But how?" Before anyone could respond, the artifact reacted once more. The glowing symbols along the walls shifted, forming new patterns that pulsed rhythmically. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Then, without warning, the floor beneath their feet began to change. Sections of it slid apart, revealing glowing pathways that branched off in different directions. "This way," Sujin said instinctively, pointing toward one of the paths. Her instincts as a linguist made her attuned to subtle cues, and something about the symbols near this path seemed familiar, almost inviting. "No," Thalak growled, stepping forward. His scales had darkened further, signaling his distrust. "We don't know where these lead. It could be another trap." "It's not a trap," Yeji countered sharply. She gestured toward the hologram of the galaxy. "Look at that. This thing is trying to prepare us for something. If we want answers, we have to follow its lead." "She's right," Jamin added firmly. "Standing here won't help us. We need to move forward, together." Reluctantly, the group agreed. They split into pairs, each taking a different path. Though they wouldn't admit it aloud, there was a shared understanding that whatever lay ahead would require cooperation, and perhaps sacrifice. Jamin's trial. Jamin walked alone down one of the glowing paths, his footsteps echoing softly in the vast emptiness. The corridor twisted and turned unpredictably, its walls lined with shifting images. At first, they showed scenes of Earth, cities burning, oceans drying up, skies choked with ash. He recognized them immediately as visions of war and environmental collapse, moments from humanity's past that he'd studied during his years as a diplomat. But then the images changed. Now they depicted Earth thriving, a united world where nations worked together, technology advanced peacefully, and humanity reached for the stars not out of greed, but curiosity. These were possibilities, dreams, yet unfulfilled. And finally, the images shifted again, showing Earth consumed by fire, not from natural disasters, but from weapons of unimaginable power. A voice, not spoken, but felt, echoed in his mind. You seek peace, but can you achieve it? Can you guide your people away from destruction? Jamin clenched his fists, his calm demeanor wavering under the weight of the question. He thought of all the debates he'd participated in, the arguments he'd mediated, the compromises he'd brokered. Yet, deep down, he knew humanity's history was riddled with conflict. Could he truly believe in a future free of it? I don't have all the answers, he admitted aloud, his voice firm despite the doubt gnawing at him. But I believe in hope, in working together. That's enough to start. The corridor brightened suddenly, the oppressive images fading away. Jamin exhaled deeply, realizing he had passed the trial, but only because he had confronted his own fears. Yeji's trial. Yeji found herself in a space unlike anything she'd ever seen. It was vast and empty, save for floating fragments of machinery suspended in midair. As she approached, she realized what they were: pieces of her failed quantum reactor project. Each fragment pulsed faintly, as if alive. Memories flooded back. The late nights spent poring over calculations, the excitement of early successes, and the crushing disappointment when the experiments went wrong. She remembered shutting down the project, knowing it was too dangerous to continue. But now, seeing those remnants here, repurposed within the artifact, filled her with guilt. "Why did you bring me here?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "To remind me of my mistakes?" The fragments began to rearrange themselves, forming a construct that looked eerily human. Its faceless form stared at her, radiating an unsettling energy. "Your failure gave rise to potential," the voice echoed. "But will you learn from it? Or let fear hold you back?" Yeji stepped closer, her heart pounding. "I abandoned my work because it was unstable, because I didn't want to risk lives, and now it shapes the fate of countless others." She hesitated, tears welling up in her eyes. For so long she'd carried the burden of failure, convinced she'd done the right thing. But now, faced with the reality of what her abandoned project had become, she wasn't sure anymore. "I'll do better," she vowed, her voice cracking. "I'll find a way to make things right." The construct dissolved into light, leaving Hyeji standing alone. She wiped her face, feeling both lighter and heavier than before. Whatever came next, she knew she couldn't run from her past any longer. Kyung-Soo's trial. Kyung-Soo's path led him to a wide arena-like chamber, its floor covered in shifting sand. Before him stood shadowy figures, ghosts of enemies he'd fought in past wars. Their forms flickered, weapons raised as if ready to attack. He instinctively reached for a weapon that wasn't there. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice tense. The figures lunged at him, their movements swift and deadly. Kyung-Soo dodged and countered, relying on instincts honed through years of combat training. But no matter how many times he struck, the shadows kept coming. Endless waves of aggression. Finally, exhausted and bleeding from shallow cuts inflicted by phantom blades, Kyung-Soo fell to his knees. "Enough!" he shouted. "Why are you doing this?" The shadows paused, coalescing into a single figure, a memory of himself, cold and unyielding. "You fight to protect, but does violence truly solve anything?" the voice asked. Kyung-Soo looked away, shame washing over him. He'd always believed fighting was necessary, that strength and force were the only ways to ensure survival. But now, surrounded by echoes of battles long over, he wondered if he'd been wrong. "I don't know," he admitted softly. Maybe there's another way." The figure vanished, and the chamber grew still. Kyung-Soo sat in silence, his hands trembling. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to question whether his reliance on violence had cost him more than it had gained. Sujin's trial. Sujin entered a room filled with whispers, hundreds of voices speaking in languages she didn't recognize. They swirled around her, overlapping and chaotic, making it impossible to focus. Panic rose in her chest as she tried to block out the noise, but it only grew louder. Then, amidst the chaos, she heard a single clear voice. It spoke, in a language she understood, though she couldn't identify it. Listen carefully, it urged. Every word carries meaning. Sujin closed her eyes, focusing on the sounds around her. Slowly, patterns emerged. Words formed sentences, and sentences told stories. She realized she was hearing the voices of extinct civilizations, races lost to time, their cultures erased by war, disease, or disaster. One story stood out among the rest. It spoke of unity shattered by mistrust, of alliances broken by fear, of worlds falling silent, their threads severed from the galactic web. Tears streamed down Sujin's face as she absorbed the tales. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." The whispers softened, becoming almost comforting. "Now you do," the voice replied. "Remember their lessons." When Sujin opened her eyes, the room was quiet. She felt a newfound determination to bridge divides to ensure no culture was ever forgotten again. Vareen and Laraya's trials. Meanwhile, Vareen and Laraya faced challenges tailored to their natures. Vareen confronted illusions of fractured crystals, forced to piece them back together while resisting the urge to shatter them further. It taught resilience and patience. Laraya navigated a mental labyrinth, her telepathic abilities tested as she deciphered conflicting thoughts projected by the artifact. Both emerged stronger, their bonds with the crew deepened. Thalok's trial Thalok refused to participate fully, viewing the trials as manipulative tricks. When confronted by visions of his homeworld destroyed by betrayal, he lashed out, destroying the constructs around him. Though he survived, his refusal to engage left him isolated, his distrust unshaken. As the crew reunited, they shared their experiences, piecing together the artifact's message. It demanded unity, not just among themselves but across the galaxy. To activate its full power, however, required a final act of sacrifice, one that would bind them forever. Little did they know, the hardest decision was yet to come. The crew of the Eos Vanguard gathered once more in the central chamber of the artifact, their faces etched with exhaustion and determination. Each member carried the weight of their trials, the lessons learned still fresh in their minds. The artifact had pushed them to confront their deepest fears, doubts, and regrets. Now it seemed ready to reveal its final secret, but at a cost. Hyegi stood near the glowing core of the structure, her tablet abandoned on the floor beside her. Her hands trembled slightly as she stared at the pulsating energy before her. "It's waiting for us," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the hum of the chamber. "But I don't think we're prepared for what comes next." Jae-min stepped forward, his expression calm but resolute. "We don't have a choice. Whatever this thing wants, it's clear that humanity, and every species connected to this galaxy, is counting on us. If we walk away now, we'll be abandoning them all." Kyung-soo nodded grimly, his usually stoic demeanor tinged with unease. "He's right. Whether we like it or not, we've come too far to turn back." Sujin glanced around at her companions, her sharp eyes catching the tension simmering beneath the surface. Even Vareen's crystalline form shimmered faintly, reflecting the uncertainty in the room. Laraya floated silently, her liquid body rippling with quiet anxiety. Only Thalok remained distant, his scales darkened to an almost black hue, his tail flicking irritably. "This is madness," Thalok growled, breaking the silence. "We don't know what activating this thing will do. For all we know, it could destroy us, or worse, give humanity even more power than they already have." "That's enough!" Hyegi snapped, rounding on him. Her patience, worn thin by days of mistrust and accusation, finally broke. "You've done nothing but question us since we got here. If you're so afraid, then leave. But don't stand there pretending you care about anyone but yourself." Thalok bared his teeth, his reptilian eyes narrowing dangerously. "You dare accuse me of selfishness? Humans are the ones who brought us here, dragging the rest of the galaxy into their reckless schemes." Before Hyegi could retort, Jae-min stepped between them, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "Enough," he said firmly, his voice cutting through the rising tension. "Arguing won't solve anything. We need to focus on what matters." For a moment, it seemed like Thalok might lunge at Jae-min, his claws flexing as if itching to strike. But then, unexpectedly, he turned away, muttering something under his breath. The room fell silent again, the weight of unspoken conflict hanging, heavy in the air. As the crew prepared to face the artifact's final challenge, strange phenomena began to intensify. Equipment malfunctioned more frequently, monitors flickering on and off without warning. Sujin reported hearing voices again, this time louder and clearer, speaking in languages she couldn't understand, but felt compelled to translate. Kyung-soo grew increasingly agitated, claiming the ship itself felt alive, responding to his presence in ways that defied logic. Even the artifact seemed restless, its glowing patterns shifting erratically. Panels along the walls slid open and closed, revealing glimpses of unfamiliar symbols and images. The threads of light connecting the holographic galaxy pulsed faster, as if urging the crew to act quickly. "We're running out of time," Hyeji said, her voice tight with urgency. She pointed to the hologram where the looming darkness had begun to creep closer, swallowing entire star systems whole. "If we don't activate this thing soon, whatever catastrophe it's warning us about might already be underway." "But how?" Sujin asked, her brow furrowed. "What does it want from us?" Hyeji hesitated, her gaze fixed on the glowing core. I think it needs someone to merge with it, to become part of it." The words hung in the air, met with stunned silence. Finally, Jamin spoke, his voice steady despite the unease in his chest. "And what happens to whoever does that?" "I don't know," Hyeji admitted, "but I think it's the only way to unlock its full potential, to amplify the connections between civilizations and stop the darkness from spreading." Kyung-soo crossed his arms, his jaw tightening. "That sounds suspiciously like a death sentence." "Maybe it is," Hyeji replied, her tone softening. "But if it saves the galaxy, isn't it worth it?" Before anyone could respond, the artifact reacted violently. The lights dimmed, plunging the chamber into near darkness. Then, with a deafening crack, a section of the wall exploded inward, sending shards of glowing material flying across the room. Through the breach emerged Thalok, his scales gleaming menacingly in the low light. In his hand, he held a small device, a bomb. "You were right," he snarled, his voice dripping with venom. "This thing is dangerous, and I won't let it fall into human hands or anyone else's." Panic erupted among the crew. Sujin screamed, diving for cover as Kyung-soo lunged toward Thalok, his instincts kicking in. The two clashed in a brutal fight, their movements fast and deadly. Kyung-soo's military training gave him the edge, but Thalok fought with the ferocity of someone backed into a corner. "Stop him!" Hyeji shouted, scrambling to her feet. "If that bomb goes off, we're all dead!" Jamin tried to intervene, but Thalok swiped at him with razor-sharp claws, forcing him to retreat. Meanwhile, Vareen chimed urgently, its crystalline form refracting beams of light in an attempt to blind Thalok. Lariah projected calming thoughts into the reptilian warrior's mind, trying to break through his rage, but he shrugged them off like a storm resisting calm winds. Kyung-soo tackled Thalok to the ground, pinning him down with sheer force. The bomb slipped from Thalok's grasp, skittering across the floor. Hyeji dove for it, her fingers closing around the device just as its countdown reached critical levels. With trembling hands, she fumbled to disarm it, sweat dripping down. "Her face!" "Hurry!" Jamin urged, his voice strained. "I'm trying!" Hyeji snapped, her mind racing as she deciphered the bomb's mechanisms. It was crude but effective, designed to overload the artifact's core and cause a catastrophic explosion. Finally, with seconds to spare, she managed to disable it, the red numbers freezing mid-countdown. Breathing heavily, she collapsed onto the floor, clutching the deactivated bomb tightly. Kyung-soo pinned Thalok face down, his knee pressed firmly against the warrior's back. "You traitor!" Kyung-soo growled, his voice low and dangerous. "What were you thinking?" Thalok struggled briefly, then went limp, his tail twitching angrily. "I was thinking of my people," he spat, "of everyone who would suffer if this thing fell into the wrong hands." "And destroying it would have helped no one," Hyeji shouted, her voice shaking with fury. "Do you realize what you've done? You nearly killed us all." Before Thalok could respond, alarms blared throughout the artifact. The glowing patterns along the walls shifted rapidly, forming symbols that pulsed with alarming intensity. A deep rumble echoed through the chamber, as if the structure itself were protesting the violence that had occurred within its confines. "He triggered something," Sujin gasped, pointing to the holographic projection of the galaxy. The threads of light-connecting civilizations began to fray, snapping one by one as the darkness spread faster than ever before. "We need to finish this," Jamin said urgently, turning to the crew. "Now!" Hyeji nodded, rising to her feet despite her exhaustion. She approached the glowing core, her heart pounding in her chest. "I'll do it," she said quietly, her voice filled with determination. "I'll merge with it." "No," Jamin protested, stepping toward her. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," Hyeji replied, meeting his gaze with unwavering resolve. "My knowledge of quantum mechanics makes me the best candidate. Besides," she offered him a small, sad smile. "Isn't this what we came here to do? To prove that humanity can contribute something meaningful?" Jamin opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. Instead, he placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch conveying everything he couldn't say. "Be careful," he whispered finally. With a deep breath, Hyeji stepped into the core. The glowing energy enveloped her instantly, lifting her off the ground as streams of light flowed into her body. Her consciousness expanded, stretching beyond the confines of the artifact and into the vast network of galactic connections. She saw countless worlds, each thread representing a civilization's unique essence. She felt their hopes, their fears, their dreams, all intertwined in a delicate web. Outside, the crew watched in awe as the artifact transformed. Its surface shimmered brighter than ever, casting radiant beams of light into the void. The threads of the holographic galaxy reconnected, strengthening with every passing second. The darkness receded, pushed back by the renewed unity of the galaxy. When it was over, Hyeji stood motionless within the core, her physical form seemingly gone. Yet her presence lingered, a warm, comforting energy that filled the chamber. "She did it," Sujin murmured, tears streaming down her face. "She saved us all." Jamin stared at the glowing core, his heart heavy with both pride and sorrow. He knew Hyeji wasn't truly gone. Her spirit lived on, woven into the very fabric of the galaxy. But that didn't make saying goodbye any easier. As the crew prepared to leave the artifact behind, Thalok escaped into the shadows, vowing to report back to his superiors. Though his betrayal had nearly cost them everything, the crew chose to focus on the future rather than dwell on the past.